This is Sports Charlotte, the podcast about sports in Charlotte. My name is Herb White. I'm editor-in-chief at the Charlotte Post. And as usual is Cameron Williams over on the far side, staff reporter here at the Post. It's Thursday, May 29, 2025, and things are happening at Johnson C. Smith University with the basketball program. And it's a remake in some ways, and in other ways, it's a continuation of voter confidence. And that's why our guest is here today, Antwain Banks, who is no longer interim men's basketball coach with the Golden Bulls. He is the permanent head coach. Welcome to the podcast. It's your first time. Congratulations on the promotion. I guess you can classify it as that.
Yes, sir.
Give us an idea of what it's been like since having the interim tag removed. Apparently you're pretty satisfied with that.
Thank you guys for having me today. Obviously, good news here at Johnson C. Smith for the men's basketball program and for myself and my family. Being, as you say, promoted, the permanent head coach. So obviously excited, very humbled and honored to be in this position to carry on the tradition that Coach Joyner has left us behind.
Your first year, 15-13, which I guess some people would have said that's pretty good, and it's a surprise considering the circumstances in which you were brought on. It was April of 2024. You didn't have a very large window to recruit. You had to re-recruit the guys who were still here, build a roster that you liked. That was a lot to pack into one season, and then you had to actually go out and coach. So talk a little bit about that first season and managing to surprise people with a 15-13 record that included Smith's first CIAA tournament win in 5 seasons.
Obviously, I had a lot to do coming into the door in a short amount of time. Had to get acclimated with the roster. First of all, I had to figure out what roster I actually had when I got here. There were some guys in the portal. Lost a young man that was all-league, Division II, Black College, All-American. So going into it thinking I was going to have one roster and actually getting here realizing that the roster was going to be a little different. So had to change the plan as far as, okay, what do I have? What can they do? Okay, and then how can we fit that into style of play? And, it's a testament to these young men. From day one, they bought in. They allowed me to coach them, and just over time, just teaching and repetition, the guys were able to get more and more comfortable with the system. And as they got more comfortable with the system, I think they were able to gain some confidence, and the chemistry was able to connect. And in the course of that, man, we were able to win a couple of games in the process of doing that. So, did I think we were going to come in here and win 15 games? No, I didn't think that, but to be able to come in here and win 15 games, which was the most in 5 years, and to win a playoff game for the first time in 5 years, I think we're able to do some positive things and, get us some things to look forward to moving forward.
Herb mentioned recruiting. One thing I always like to ask coaches, he mentioned he had a short window to recruit the first cycle heading into your first season. Well, now that you've got a full off season, what are characteristics you look for? Obviously you look for guys that can play ball, but what are some characteristics maybe off the court that you look for in players that you recruit?
I mean, at the end of the day, we want winners, right? What does that look like? Being students of the game. Me being from Indiana, I like to play with some read and reacting, guys that know how to play, guys that are a little selfless to where they don't mind sharing the basketball. Guys that are selfless, guys that fundamentally sound, that can pass, dribble, and shoot. That sounds so, basic, right? But it's, today you got guys that are specialists, they do One great thing, we want interchangeable guys that can do multiple things, that can play multiple positions. Therefore, we can play a couple different styles depending on who we're playing. But at the end of the day, we want the togetherness, we want the selfless, we want the playing for one another. And then at the end of the day, let the chips fall where they may.
One of the things that a lot of people had to adjust to was having a different face on that sideline. After 37 years of Steve Joyner, you kind of get familiar. And then it's like, who is this dude?
Absolutely.
And who are these dudes playing with him? Give us an idea of what that was like. And I know we've talked before, and you were perfectly okay with following somebody like Steve Joyner. But what about those folks who were like, not so sure? And do you not pay attention to that, or is it a matter of I'm embracing it, you should too?
I mean, obviously coming into the situation, I'm embracing it. I thought I had a good understanding of what I was walking into as far as the legend I was following. But you're talking about 36 years. That's a long time, and obviously a testament to Coach for being able to be in that position as long as he was, compared to the lifespan of a coach at an institution isn't long today. So, and then you were in a situation as far as today. You talk about change. Are people comfortable with change today? Just embracing the situation, the opportunity first and foremost. I really wanted to come in and just put my head down and work, and just let my body of work show who I was. And then in the process of people and the fans getting to know me, and the alumni getting to know me and have conversations, just being vulnerable enough to open up and not standoffish, and just coming in with my arms open for whoever is willing to accept me and give me a fair chance. Obviously understanding the circumstances that I came in weren't ideal, but just give me a chance, check my body of work out. And I thought coming in they would be pleased with the brand of basketball, the style of play. At the end of the day, they wanted to win. So I thought we were able to check some boxes to where people could be satisfied.
Yeah, because there was a couple of factions. There were the factions that said, well, maybe this life cycle after 36 years, it's done. There's time for new blood. They got it. So,
so what they say, be careful what you ask for.
Well, yeah, I mean, we all should pay that some attention. But when you are in that kind of position, it's not necessarily, I guess, a matter of remaking anything. It's, this is your program now. And the university obviously has enough faith in the body of work you put together on an interim basis to say, well, you know what, we can roll with this. Especially with the results that you got.
Yeah, I think just coming in, establishing a culture, the foundation was already laid with Coach. And he had some great young men already in the program. And with coaching today, that's half the battle as far as, outside the X and O's and the scheming and things like that, is do you have good kids? And we had great kids, and it made it easier for me to come in and to coach those guys and to really get on them and get them to be where I needed them to be in order for us to be successful.
So I want to pivot back, no pun intended, to recruiting and just the age that we are in with sports in general, with NIL, the transfer portal. How do you not only recruit kids to a program like this, but retain them, and so that they don't want to leave for, $1,000 extra here or $1,000 extra there?
Yeah, I mean, the climate, college basketball, I think we're all trying to figure it out, especially at the Power 5 level where, they're just doing their own thing right now, and how does that trickle down to us, and what does that look like? But, with recruiting, obviously being Division II, you have over 1,000 kids in the Division I portal right now. You have thousands of kids right now who all think they're going Division I still. So it kind of puts us in a tight window as far as just being patient, just kind of waiting the time out to where those guys kind of, aren't as delusional to where thinking that, they're going to get that call.
Yeah.
And so, got to do a little bit more chasing than what that I previously would have had to do, which is okay. I'm used to that. And then, retaining your own guys is, style of play. I think having some success helped with that. But, once you get on this campus, once you get in the city of Charlotte, that sells itself. My little piece as far as the basketball part, that's the added bonus, right? Obviously they're here to, come play basketball and win some games, but the city and, the campus social life, I think that has a big part as far as retention. And then also too, just understanding that, okay, guys are gonna come down from Division I to Division II, be an outlet for that. But then also too, identify some guys, develop some guys at this level to where, they can obtain their dream and go Division I. And that actually happened with our 6'9" big Asa White. He actually, we had a conversation. He wanted to pursue the Division I goal, and his main thing was, Coach, do you think I can play at that level? And I told him absolutely. It's all about right fit, style of play, but the most important piece was who's going to continue your development. I felt, his freshman year, he didn't really get a lot of in-game experience to actually develop and just get the kinks out of being a freshman. So even though he was a sophomore last year, he really was playing as a freshman in-game. But, he averaged 10 and 6. He shot 55, 56 from the field, 45 from 3, and 82 from the field. And you're talking about a 6'9" guy that can shoot it. There were going to be opportunities there for him. And, he had got an agent who was, pretty big on an NIL piece, but wasn't connected with the Division I coaches to actually make the connects and actually give Asa, that opportunity. So I helped lead the way with this recruitment. I reached out to a lot of guys. I teased them all the time, like, man, hey, I need a piece of that agent fee that you're getting over there as hard as I'm working. But, we were able to find him, man, Eastern Kentucky, man, which is in the A-Sun, great league, great program. And he's going to have a phenomenal career over there, man. He's just so happy, so excited. He called me the other day just to thank me, and at the end of it, he was like, Coach, man, I love you, and and that's what it's all about. Now, does that hurt? Does it, a big void right there in the middle? Absolutely. But it's my job to fill it and figure it out. And if we recruit another kid and he develops and he takes the same route, I mean, it is what it is at this point, man. I'm in the business for the guys, man. You guys will hear me say over and over, man, it's not about me. It'll never be about me.
I gotta admit, you're probably a bigger man than I would have been. You're on your own. You want to leave.
And it's funny because we had the conversation before we got invited to the Black College Invitational Championship, and I asked him, did he want to play? And he looked at me kind of puzzled and was like, okay, and he really didn't know how to answer it because he wanted to talk to his agent first, and so the agent calls me and he's like, Coach, you might be the only coach in America right now. The kid tell you he's going to hit the portal and you're still telling us, we can play in the, postseason thing. And I was like, well, listen, like, he still has to audition for the Division I. He's trying to get Division I. This is 2 more games. You have an opportunity to audition and show, what you got. And I didn't let him shoot it as much from the perimeter as he may have liked. And I told them that these is 2 games to where, I'll let him play his game and showcase what he can do. And he played really well for us those 2 games, man. And that first game, I think it was 3 from 3 from 3. So, that little footage helped him, man. And again, it wasn't about me. It was about that young man and putting him in position, man, to be able to continue to further along his career and obtain some dreams.
Just from your responses there, it seems like you're a very, very player-oriented coach. It's all about the kids. But I wanted to ask, when it comes to recruiting, a lot of Division II guys, they don't look to recruit high school kids anymore. Because let's face it, you got guys that are in the transfer portal, they've got that college experience, that college weight training and stuff. What's your, knowledge base of the Charlotte area and just North Carolina as a whole when it comes to recruiting high school kids? Because, I mean, I know you said Indiana earlier, but
Yeah,
North Carolina's
hey,
the hoop state.
hey, listen, man, and when I say North Carolina is a great brand of basketball in this state, man, it makes me feel right at home. The landscape of college basketball has changed. A lot of high school kids are getting left behind, unfortunately. But I think it's a balance between to where, some of these guys slip through the cracks that they are Division I. The talent's there. It's just the opportunity as far as what the Division I guys are looking for. It's up for me to identify those guys and find them and understand. Let's try to get them here, and we might only have them for a year, might only have them for 2. But at the end of the day, it's our job to identify those, the local talent, and get them here on campus. We're able to bring in 2 freshmen last class. I would like to bring in 2 freshmen this class and continue to build it that way into a program. Obviously, Transfer U is kind of the route that a lot of schools are going. That's not a route I technically want to go as far as building a program to where you can sustain winning. I think you got to have some continuity. You have to have a base to where you can continue to build on. And even though, I inherited the team from last year, we still have a good core, good mix of half of those guys coming back this season that we can continue to build on, and those guys can continue to show the new guys what we have established here and how we do things to help them move forward.
So what's the ratio? What's the balance or percentage do you want to recruit? 70 guys from the portal, 30 high school? I mean, what's that look like?
I just think it's a mix of as far as, transfer portal, junior college kids, high school kids. I think it's a dynamic of the makeup of your team. Do you have a veteran team? Do you have more guys returning? I don't know if there's an answer right now. Yeah. It's tough. Because it's different because guys want older guys. It's easier for me to get a transfer kid in that's already been at a 4-year institution. He's already been through the college practice. He's already been through the day-to-day activity as far as your days being taken away from you. Understands what study hall looks like, just the whole dynamics of that college experience to where a high school kid, he's coming in and he's blindfolded, right? He really doesn't have an idea, he's coming in mindful, but, he doesn't know what to expect. So therefore they're all, as soon as preseason comes, they're all hit right in the mouth, and it's just a matter of, when do they recover from that, And I just think if you have too many of those guys, depending on the, circumstance, the situation you're in. If you're in a situation where you're building something and you're starting from scratch, and you just want to come in and build it, from the ground up, I can see you coming in, building it with, youth and just, taking your lumps early and building it that way. But I think you have to have a mix and a match. But, I'm not a, bring 11, 12 guys in every season and just figure it out. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's still about the development. It's still about the social life enjoyment on a college campus. And then it's also about, retaining your guys that you have, but graduating them, getting them out the door. And you want to do that and winning some games, but you can't just put winning games over everything. It's a whole, it's a big puzzle you're trying to put together, man. And how I was taught to, do the puzzle, you start with the outside. And then you work your way on the inside.
Yeah.
I don't think you try to go ahead and go straight to the middle and, work your way out. You know what I mean? So that's just how I'm looking at it. And, hey, as each year comes, be some tweaks there, learn here, learn there, and figure it out from there.
Before you got to Smith, you were at several different schools, IUPUI. Mm-hmm. It is ooey pooey, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? hey, we're gonna say that, but let's be careful who we say that around because we might upset some people.
Okay. All right, but I bring that up.
But now, formerly IUPUI, now they're IUND.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
well.
Yep. So they're going to get away from that.
Well, I'm accustomed to that one. So, IU Indy,
Yes,
no
sir.
problem. But I brought that up. You've been in several different. This is not your first rodeo. This is not your first program.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to IU Indy,
Yes.
Kentucky State, you're the
Yes.
head coach.
Yes.
Alabama A&M,
Yes,
an
sir.
assistant coach. So you're not unfamiliar with black college basketball.
Oh, this is they say what, third time is a charm?
Well, let us hope. But in terms of black college basketball,
Yes.
since the fall of segregation back in the 60s and 70s in southern schools, black college basketball had kind of been relegated in terms of its prominence. Those great athletes back in the day, they were no longer, if a kid in North Carolina was a really great player in the 50s and 60s, he was going to Smith, A&T, North Carolina Central. Now they're going to Duke and North Carolina.
Absolutely.
And so the HBCUs were developmental places where you could take those diamonds in the rough and turn them into something spectacular. A Ben Wallace, or who else was really good?
Avery Johnson.
Avery
was really
Johnson. Darrell Armstrong was the one I was thinking about,
Okay.
from Fayetteville State. So those guys played in the 80s, 90s.
Flip Murray.
Flip Murray at Shaw.
Yeah.
Maybe the most noticeable one in the CIAA in the last 20 years. But when you have been moved into that box, and you've been in that box for so long, does this make it a little bit easier to deal with modern day college basketball's landscape, where you, as a program or as programs, you've always been developing talent over the last 50 years?
I mean, I don't think when you're talking about development in the student athlete on and off the court, I don't think you put, PWI, HBCU in front of it. I think, the landscape as far as today has changed with, a lot of those kids going to those schools. But, I think it's kind of changing a little bit too, to where you're having kids that are transferring out, but I think you're having more and more kids transferring in to the HBCUs today than what you previous had over the success that a lot of these schools have had. If you look at Norfolk State and that run that Coach Jones has had over there, man, the kids they're able to get out of that transfer portal that a lot of HBCU schools might not have gotten an opportunity to get in the last few years. You look at the SWAC the last 2 years. You talk about Alabama State this year and the run they made in the tournament and winning a game. The previous year before that, Grambling, winning the tournament, winning a game. So, and then you even back it up a little bit before that. You see what, Coach Prime was able to do at Jackson State and bring the, kind of the spotlight back to HBCU and what he was able to do there and go to Colorado. Now obviously there's only one Coach Prime, and we know that. But just as far as just the opportunity, visibility, and opportunity, I think that's always going to be here at the HBCU. It comes down to the funding. And what you're able to do with the resources to be able to give you a chance, to be able to get some of those kids that you typically normally wouldn't get. So we're going to continue to have our battles that we're going to fight, just being at historical black college that you normally would have. But I do think that, as far as development and the kids want to come to HBCU, I think there's a want there, that there's an opportunity that, we're trying to take advantage of. If you look at the CIAA this past season, man, we got 3 teams in the regional tournament. That's unheard of when you're talking about, HBCU conference, and you got 2 teams that got at-large bids into the tournament. So that's a testament to our league, our coaches, and, the brand of basketball that we're playing. And at the end of the day, getting some really good players to help us, obtain that.
Now, of those 3 teams that made it to the Division II, none of them were Smith.
None of them were
So
Smith.
what do you have to do to get to that point? Because you know, football's recent success aside,
Yeah.
Smith has always been a basketball school.
Yeah, and I think what comes with that is just continue to build. You know, like I said, we had some success we're able to build off of this past season, and just continue to build on that. I don't think we get ahead of the game to where, you know, we skip any steps. Obviously, you know, the goal is for me to come here, build a championship caliber program, and I just think you do that step by step. You know, Coach Flowers was here year one. He had his bumps in the road he had to deal with. Year two, they made a bigger transition to where they were able to have some success. And then year three, they were able to really have some success and continue to grow. And I don't think that changes as far as with our program, as far as continuing to trust the process, continue to build brick by brick. And then if you look at those three teams that went, you talk about Fayetteville State, who, you know, Coach Luke, you know, he did a phenomenal job of building his program and establishing it year by year. If you look at Virginia State with Coach Blow, him and establishment of him building a program and continue to stay the course. And then you look at Devin, who was at Bluefield State, that's now at Fayetteville, you know, him going, I think it was his fourth year, to where just stay in the course and continue just to build your program, get some players in that fit your style of play. And just, you know, trust the process and just try to figure it out from there.
Because that's interesting that Fayetteville and Bluefield basically traded coaches.
They did.
And so does that change the dynamic in the CIAA, or is this something where you see a path forward in year two, now that you've gotten your feet wet, you exceeded expectations, and now the expectation is accelerated, I guess.
I mean, I don't think it changed courses. You still got two great coaches. They just switched seats. They're going to get great players. Obviously, Coach, you know, Devin over at Fayetteville, you know, he's able to retain some of those guys. He was able to bring half of his team with him, so they're going to be familiar with him. They're going to play that great style of play. You know, and then, you know, Bluefield State, you know, he's won everywhere he's been. He's a winner. You know, he's behind the 8 ball right now, but I'm sure he has a list of guys he's on the horn with, trying to get in there with him as well, you know. But, you know, it doesn't change as far as what we're trying to do, as far as build the program and move forward. Obviously, we were the 3rd seed this year. Obviously, moving forward, you know, we want to try to be one of the 1st or 2nd seeds so we can get that bye and kind of be waiting for somebody, you know, that second game instead of having somebody waiting on us, you know. I think that's a big difference, you know. But me coming into the league, just, you know, obviously hearing about the CIAA and what great league it is, and obviously the great coaches that are in there, it's just, you know, seeing what it was about, actually, you know, getting in the middle of it and going through it and seeing each teams and their style of plays and how they want to play, and the level of competition and what that looks like. And now, you know, analyzing that and just, you know, having a plan forward with the guys we identified and moving forward on playing how we want to play, but with the mindset of, okay, this is where the league is, this is who we're chasing, this is who we got to catch up to.
What surprised you most in year one at Smith?
Man, like, it doesn't matter if you're at home or you're on the road, you can get beat. I mean, you know, I mean, it like the atmospheres, you know, just the level of play night in and night out. Like, every night you have to be focused and ready to win a basketball game. And, you know, you can't get caught up until you get too high on wins, can't get too low on losses, because, you know, you can't enjoy the wins because you got to get ready for the next game. You know, you can't dwell on the losses because you got to figure out how to win the next game. So I think that was the biggest nail to where, you know, trying to stay in the moment and kind of process, you know, some of the things we were doing in that moment, and not getting so, you know, wound up on, you know, what's next. Let's get to the next. Let's get to the next. So, you know, enjoy the moment a little bit. You know, let it slow down a little bit. But, you know, that was the biggest thing, man, is, you know, everybody in the CIAA from top to bottom. It doesn't matter who you're playing. It doesn't matter what their record is. You know, you can get beaten any given night.
You mentioned the 3 teams that made runs in the postseason tournament. You guys had relatively close results against all 3 of those teams. The largest loss margin was 10. So talk about where you go from here. You talked earlier about kind of unsuspected or unexpected rather success you had in the first year. Well, where does it go from here? I mean, this team, they're talking about a program that was only 5 or 6 years removed from a 20-win season. What's it going to take to get back there?
I mean, just staying the course, just letting the guys not be complacent, not letting the guys feel like we arrived, continue to be hungry, having the mindset, the attitude. Obviously, the job's not done yet, but we haven't done anything. You know what I mean? I mean, we won 15 games, we lost 13. We lost in the second round of the tournament. At the end of the day, the ultimate goal of what we're chasing, what we're trying to achieve, it wasn't established. So, when the guys come back and the new guys are here, just huddle them up. We'll talk about the previous season briefly, talk about the small victories in that, but then we'll flush that, and the bigger picture is, you can't take last season into this season. It's a newer season. Nothing we did last year matters what's going on moving forward. Nobody care about yesterday. We only care about today and what's in front of us, So just understanding that mindset and approaching it that way, and just being hungry for more, just not being satisfied. But understanding what you signed up for, too. You signed up to make that commitment to change the dynamics of where we've been and where we're going. Understanding that as hard as we worked last year, everything we put into last year, that wasn't enough. So we have to do more. The standard is the standard. We aren't wavering on that at no particular time of day, no matter if we feel good or we don't feel like doing it. The standard is the standard. We have to achieve what that standard is, and just have that mindset and continue to trust that process and get better one day at a time. Embrace the same old boring habits every day. Yeah. That can be tough, and just having them in that mindset and locked in, and just reminding them every day what we're trying to achieve.
And so the last one I got for you, Coach, when it comes to building a schedule, you had some tough games early on last season. Do you like to challenge your guys like that? I mean, you played North Carolina, a Queens team who exceeded a lot of people's expectations. Queens was really good last year. So talk about building this year's schedule and what that's going to look like.
So I already got Queens locked in again, so we'll be playing them. I have 3 Division I guys that I am bugging like crazy right now. Like I'll text one head coach the other day, and I was like, Coach, I'm sorry if I'm bugging you like a recruit, but just to get those games on the schedule, it's huge, right? It's a recruiting tool. Guys want to play those games. I have a few relationships to where I feel comfortable to where we'll be able to get a few each year. And then you talk about the balance of, the rest of the schedule. Obviously, you want to have a balance of your home games. You want your fans to be able to see the product on the floor. You want to build that hostile environment early. And then at the same time, we have some really, really great teams that are local, that are close to where they're tournament teams. I want to play 2 tournament teams every single year, so we can get that feel. We can see where we measure up early on in the year, but also let these guys know this is what it looks like. This is where we are. This is where we have to go. But this is a team that is there every single year, fellas. Yeah. So this is what we're chasing. This is what we want to become. So we're going to play Lincoln Memorial, at Lincoln Memorial, which is going to be tough. Yeah. We're going to play Lenore Ryan right up the road, who went to the Elite 8 last year. Me and Coach Brent Owen, we're both Indiana guys. We're both good friends. So it's something that we want to do every year. Now I got to get him to come in Bray Boy eventually, but I don't mind going up the road right now and just checking ball and let us see where we are. Let us see what we're chasing, and I think that'll be good for our guys.
Any conversations with Coach Aaron Fern up the road at Charlotte? I know they're kind of in the same boat, kind of trying to build something, but I know they played Livingstone last year.
So he's the one that I'm bugging like a recruit right now. So I think. And my fingers are crossed. I hope I'm not speaking too soon, but I think we're going to be able to get something done. It's just a matter of what does that date look like. Yeah. So I'm working that. I think that'll be great for, obviously the city of Charlotte, but I think that'll be really good for both institutions if we're able to play that game.
Okay, well, it sounds good, and obviously you're becoming more comfortable with the full-time status, and I guess that's its own reward too. That you don't have, oh, will I be back next year? Is that something that gives you some peace of mind going forward?
I mean, obviously, I'll be kidding you if I was sitting here telling you it wasn't a peace of mind. Going into the situation, the good thing for me was it wasn't my first time being in that situation. We talk about third time being the charm, but when I was at Kentucky State, when I went into that position, I was interim. And then when I went to Alabama A&M and we was in that situation, have to turn that program around, it was an interim basis. So, for me to come here, be presented with an opportunity under the same, title, obviously it's not ideal, obviously, the stress is the stress, but it wasn't my first rodeo to where, I could be comfortable in who I was. I could be comfortable in, me building a program, even though, it was my first shot in 10 years. But I felt like those 6 years at the Division I level and the places that I've been helped mold me and, helped evolve me with today's game to where when I was able to get my next crack at it, that I would be well prepared and ready. And I think that was the confidence that I had going through the season was I was prepared. I think that took a lot of the doubt out as far as the title and worrying about what you couldn't control, because the body of work, the product on the floor, that was going to take care of itself. It just was a matter of, what were they looking for? What did they want? And obviously, Dr. President Kinlock and Dr. Hendricks, they were, huddled up throughout the whole course of the season and had an idea. And at the end of the day, all you want is an opportunity, right? I was in the chair. I thought I had a head up on some of the other guys who wanted the opportunity and, was able to audition every single night on the road and at home. So therefore, just do my job to make it as tough as possible for them to say no, I just carry myself a certain way, so I just think body of work and being in the position previous 2 times before, I think it put me in a situation to where I could be successful.
Very good. So we'll see how this works out in year 2.
Yeah, right. No question. No question.
But you've earned it, so
Yep.
that's a good thing.
Yes, sir.
And so that will do it for this episode of Sports Charlotte. Be sure to go to our website, thecharlottepost.com, and click on the donate button or the subscriber button or our weekly sports newsletter. Get that as a part of your subscription to the Post. It comes out every Thursday, and we keep up with as much as we can because Lord knows there's plenty going on in Charlotte. So we're all there, and we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us or watch this on our YouTube channel. So for everybody back at the office in beautiful Derrida, that's Cameron, that's the coach, I'm Herb. Thanks for watching and listening.
Thank you.